right? Like, and just to be clear too, at the end, he does specify that this is town properties, has nothing to do with the private sector. And again, the calculus would be different if what we're talking about is the private sector. In fact, I'm the crazy libertarian in the room that believes that if a place like O'Connor's wants to allow smoking of cigarettes inside O'Connor's, if S.J. Barrington wants to go back to where it was in the 90s, where it allowed smoking inside the bar, they should be allowed to do that. You should 100% be allowed to do that. And the thing is that, like, for those of us who don't smoke cigarettes, when there's cigarette smoking inside a venue, you know it right away, instantly. You walk through the door and you cannot make the argument that you didn't know it was taking place if you're a non-smoker and you're over 21 and you're going into O'Connor's, right? Sorry to dunk on O'Connor's if that's the case, but we all know the crowd. We've all seen the people that stand outside O'Connor's. It's one of these few establishments where almost everyone who goes in there is a smoker of some kind. They should be allowed to smoke inside. They shouldn't have to stand outside in the cold and smoke their cigarettes. Again, that's O'Connor's decision to make, but that's how far I'm willing to go with that. But the real issue here is we know the real why as to what's taking place here. And the real liability is the dubious, and I explained to you, it's a reach. It's the dubious cancer from secondhand smoke argument where, on public property, the town is liable, and on private property, they're not. So there is a case for this on public property through the extremely narrow scope that this ordinance is being presented. If there was a restrictive ordinance on the smoking of marijuana that I would be in favor of, it would be this one. It's tailored to a very narrow scope, and because of that, I'm torn. In the case of the public versus the private sector, if this was a restriction on the private sector, there'd be an automatic no. This would be an automatic no, and that's in large part because you should be devolving that decision to the business owner. And devolution is going to come up later in the show. This shouldn't be imposed upon the town of New Milford from the state, and the town of New Milford shouldn't be imposing that upon the private sector. However, when it comes to an imposition upon itself, especially in the town where we saw the poll, though the framing of the poll was wildly incorrect, the results of the poll did show that the town was fairly noticeably, at least those who responded to the poll on Facebook, were in favor of a restriction of a prohibition of in that case, the use and consumption of marijuana on all town properties. And, there's no context there to explain that, the roads don't count, right? So if you're a passenger in a car, you can smoke all the weed you want. And if you and your neighbor want to pull up chairs and go out to the end of the cul-de-sac at night and just watch the stars, you're allowed to do that, even though you're on what's technically a property of the town, and it's a property of way, as Attorney DeBella explained it. So maybe what I would say is, then let's amend this maybe to specify certain exempted properties. Is something like Clatter Valley a place that you'd be willing to provide an exemption? Is something like Sega Meadows, where there's no permanent standing structure, so it's not possible to have it be smoked indoors, where you do technically occasionally allow some camping, so it's not the open flame by itself that you're concerned with, and where, let's be honest, like it's a bunch of wooded trails with a wide open field. Let's be honest, like the whole secondhand smoke thing in a place like that is a reach. I'm not saying there's no argument. I'm saying it's a reach. So maybe what you would do is, instead of having it be something like, maybe you don't want to have the weed smoking on the green. Maybe everyone agrees that, having bong circles on the green is probably not the image that we want for the green. Although we have no problem with it at other places. Maybe you don't want it at Addis Park because there's no way to distinguish between operating the boat when high and not, right? Maybe there are some places, I would say the property to go to would be Lindeming. Would you be okay with people smoking weed at Lindeming? Right? Because there are parts of Lindeming where you're kind of off to the side. You're not really near anybody. But a huge amount of Lindeming's usage is right on the beach where you're surrounded by people, and a ton of them are young kids. So, again, maybe the solution here is we explicitly specify the properties that we want to exempt. And the one that I want to throw out to you guys, let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Would you guys be okay with smoking, not consumption, smoking marijuana at Lindeming? And when I say at Lindeming, there's no way to parcel that off. So it's got to be anywhere at Lindeming. I'm not trying to give you guys a gotcha. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think?